I'm Gabe. I'm here with some friends of mine. I have Christina and John here, and we're going to be talking today a little bit about marriage, about specifically communication in marriage, and essentially how we fumble through communication in marriage with the purpose of communicating effectively. So before we get started, John and Christina, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, do you want to
go? So we've known each other 5 years. We've been married for 3.
That's quick.
Yes. Yeah. So we don't really know what we're doing, but I do think you learn a lot in your first couple months, years of marriage for sure. Mm-hmm. So as we're figuring this out, figured we'd share a little bit of what is starting to work for us for sure. We have 2 little kids. Elias and Ellie. Right now they're 2 and going to be 8 months.
They're the cutest little beans.
Thank
They're
you.
Fun. They're fun.
I love them.
Yep. So and basically, we got married, and then I would say our 1-year anniversary, I was very pregnant.
Yeah.
And so had kids pretty soon after getting married too. So kind of jumped right into it.
Yeah. Love that for you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Something.
It's been fun. It's been crazy and fun. So for sure.
Yep.
It's so wild how kids totally, you think you've got this marriage thing down, even if it is just a couple of months, and then you get pregnant and life changes, and then the baby's born, and then you add the second one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, 2 is different than 1 for sure. Yeah.
And the communication between you two, I have no doubt, has changed significantly since adding the second.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, with that being said, how have you invested in your marriage? Maybe from that initial, you were just newlyweds, the 2 of you. How has your investment in your marriage changed as you continue to progress as a family of 3? Yep. No, 4.
Yeah, family of 4.
Family of 4.
So I can start. So we even, I would say, in dating, I would say we're pretty intentional with communication. Kind of once we had decided.
She taught me a lot in communication, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Christina, obviously, when we were dating, was a professional communicator as a professor. And I had a lot of catching up to do in that, in learning.
There was even, we had we knew we had to have one hard conversation, and he showed up with notes ready to talk.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He was just I'm going to need some time, and we'll talk about this in a week. And I think, so I think once as we were dating and we were all right, let's really pursue this and see where God's taking this. We ended up working through a book together that had some good questions for us just to process through in dating and then in engagement. And so I think that even helped stepping into marriage. And then we got married, and it was a crazy season in my life with work. I was balancing a few jobs, and
no one does more than you.
I do a lot
on a daily basis.
He looks sad. I do a lot, and that was a fairly unhealthy season for me too. I think just navigating how God was using me in the workplace, and so I was in a little bit of a job transition, and definitely we were fumbling through the beginning of our marriage. And I remember actually I was talking with my boss, and he and his wife had worked through, it's called the Marriage Journal or Navigators Council, had worked through a book together their first year of marriage. And so John and I talked about it, and that actually was a huge stepping stone in our relationship, in our marriage. And so I'll let him speak to it more, but we've basically have been doing weekly questions.
Has become a huge part of our rhythm in marriage, for sure.
I was going to ask about the logistics of that. So weekly questions, you have the same day and time every week that you pretty much will sit down and do that. You guys know it's coming.
We are not that self-disciplined.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Because I'm not. No. That wouldn't be how I function.
And especially now with kids, it's when we are wait a minute, we're in the car driving and they're both napping right now. Okay, this is the moment right here. And sometimes that's a Tuesday. Yeah. And ideally, when we first started, it was Sunday evenings. It was built in a little bit more. However, now it is when we recognize the opportunity to take them. And honestly, Christina initiates that more than I do a lot. But it's any time that we're doing a little bit of a wind down, realizing, oh, this is a good time to connect and do that for sure.
And I would say we do, if we had to like say, yep, this is our rhythm. Again, it is a very flexible rhythm, but we do strive for Sundays or Mondays if possible, because a huge part of that is actually a weekly look back and then a weekly outlook, if you will. That's his favorite part.
My favorite part. I feel lost if we don't end up doing our weekly outlook. It's like, what is going on this week?
Which is where you kind of like set your intentions for the week. You look at what's going on ahead of you and strategize or like dream.
Strategize, dream, but then also very logistics. Like, okay, what are you doing Tuesday? Oh, I'm not home
Yes.
calendaring. What's going on? Oh, you have this, I have that. And so that we're on the same page and don't, have hopefully less surprises of like, what is going on?
I'm personally taking mental notes.
Could we talk you through the questions a little bit?
Yeah.
So I think the one, and this, I think we love this one because it helps us do a look back at our week, because it just, especially now with 2 kids, like it just flies by.
Yeah.
And so the first question is, what brought you joy this week? And so we just take a moment to pause and look at the small things, look at the ways that God has been blessing us and using us and how he's moving in our lives. I think it's so easy to look ahead and just keep going. And it is definitely survival mode some weeks. But even just being able to stop and say, what was God doing this week? What brought you joy this week?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's so easy to get caught up in our anxieties, our worries. And I think sometimes, we focus on those more than the good things that are happening. So taking a pause and looking back at our week and remembering those things and how God was working, how God was faithful, and then just, the simple things that brought us joy, for sure. And a lot of that is right now is, Elias was super cute when doing this. Ellie just, she's doing this. She's growing so fast. And so, taking that pause to just recognize those things is a lot of fun. And then it pretty much flows into our second question, which is, what was hard this week? And I think that's particularly helpful for me. I think it's probably easier for Christina. She's more aware in life than I am. So she sees, if I'm going through something, she's much more aware of that than I think sometimes she can be battling or thinking through something. And I don't know that if I don't ask, I think sometimes. And I think that's huge. I can't support her if I don't know what's going on too.
Right.
And so, and if I'm not picking that up naturally, I need to ask, and lead out in that way of communicating. What's hard? What's been on your mind?
I think it helps us to carry each other's burdens too. And I think even to what John was saying, sometimes I'm almost carrying his burdens a little bit too much. And I'm like, this was really hard and it's on my mind or whatever. And he's just like, I moved on from that 5 days ago, 2 minutes after it happened.
Stop carrying that for sure.
Okay.
Like,
you can put that one down.
Put that one down. I got new stuff for you. This has been hard for sure.
I like it. It makes like you have the opportunity to, express like, here's what's hard for me, and be able to, hear that. But I even look at it from like, if I'm expressing that, sometimes I don't take the time for myself to realize what I'm struggling with, right? So just like stop and actually like, oh, this is there. That one thing led to this 5 chain linked events in my brain. So to work that out together, it seems like pretty intelligent.
Well, and sometimes it's embarrassing to say, oh, what's been causing me stress? It's like, oh, like all these things that should be more important in my life. And it was like this dumb little thing that ended up taking up a lot of my mental space that was like, and then like came into our family, came into our marriage. And it's almost sometimes it could even be a little bit of a confession thing of like, this actually like was weighing on me. And now I'm recognizing, prioritizing, realizing this probably shouldn't have, but letting you in on this is actually taking up a lot of my thought process because it's been hard. So that's also a good catch for ourselves as we're processing for
and
ourselves.
You can lose those things so easily in day-to-day busy life. But the fact that you guys like always come back to this conversation, always come back to the journal and like work through it. Then is there also like you write it down? There's that component too where we should be.
We do not. We're going to be honest. It's kind of, I think in the beginning we were much more structured with it. Now it is, we've learned how it can work for us and just kind kind of it is part of our rhythm. It is a little bit more natural and casual. So sometimes, so most of the time it's not.
Well, that's the goal.
Feeling super formal, but we're not writing it down type of thing. But I think that can. I mean, anytime that you implement something new, it can feel awkward or like this wasn't easy to like start for sure. It felt forced even at first. But like sticking with it a little bit has helped a lot and just making it feel natural and kind of working through it.
Yeah. I think one of the big questions that's included is actually related to conflict too. So I think that especially even...
Are you going in order right now?
I'm not. I jumped out of order.
Oh, okay.
It just felt so natural.
She keeps us on track with like going like 'cause I still doing these for like it's been at least 2 years that we've been doing them of 3 years of marriage. I still don't know the order. That's embarrassing to be honest.
I would have no idea, John. So I'm right in the boat with you. No,
but it is so. Yeah, just having a set time is helpful because one of the questions is. Has anything gone unconfessed this week? Is there anything you need to confess, or is there anything that I did to wrong you that we need to talk through? And so it is really a conflict-based question. But what's nice about it is it removes some of the emotion from it. So it allows just for an honest, healthy conversation to work through something that may have felt small in the moment or big in the moment, but you've given yourself time to process through it. And certainly we address things in the moment as needed, but is there something I've been stewing on? Is there something I did that I shouldn't have, and I need to confess this? And so it really is, it's a weekly accountability question, and also, it has sparked a lot of healthy and hard conversations, I think, in our marriage.
Well, and it's good because it gives, I think, an appropriate amount of time after a conflict to decide, I mean, you can have grace for your spouse in the little things, and you need to have grace in your spouse in the little things of like, okay, this irked me, I'm going to give it grace for like, give it grace, move on. But then if that is still bothering me a week later, that we need to talk
definitely
about
time to say something so you don't build resentment.
But if I mean, there's so many small, like little things that you give each other grace for that, and I have moved on, I forgot about it, whatever. And where sometimes in the moment that can feel big. And time has a way of just, giving a more perspective for sure. But it's nice to also not let something go too long because I think a week is a good amount of time to recognize whether something is big enough that it needs to be talked about or talked through, or if it was small and we can, just give each other grace for that. And so I would say most weeks we're kind of going, no, I think we're good for the most part. Like, we did have that fight, but I think we worked through it mostly. But then there's also, I would say, like, I think probably monthly or maybe every other month is like, it feels as though these fights that we've had a couple fights that kind of have this common theme. And honestly, for us, I think like just looking back at sometimes, family issues or boundary issues with, outside relationships and stuff like that are causing things that we can just talk through. And really then, have a better recognizing that this is a common theme of some of our fights.
Yeah, that's what I like that you said that. It actually helps you, if you're reporting back like the same type of thing every week, it kind of illuminates what you want to dig in on, right? Like what you really want to start leaning in on during the week, right? Like these are the things that start, I hate the word to use the word trigger, but these are the things that like, these are what activate me.
Yep.
And here's what keeps coming up. How do we avoid or work through or process them together? I love that.
Yeah. And it's, I think from there we can problem solve together too. And so I think it's a good reminder, we've been having this fight, but really we're not fighting each other. We're fighting this thing together. We're just taking it out on each other. Right. And so it helps us to figure out, what boundaries need to be set, what conversations need to be had with other people. Or if it is something like, hey, you keep doing this and it's hurting me in this way, or you keep doing this, whatever it may be, like, is there like something like, is there a specific way we can be praying for each other? Is there a close friend that you can like seek counsel from, accountability from, whatever that may be? So I think it allows us to evaluate our community and who's pouring into us and walking alongside us. And so, it helps us to remain on the same team, and also helps us figure out, what accountability and community structure do we need to help us through this.
That sounds like a nice kind of natural, kind of smooth transition into some of the other stuff that we wanted to talk about. Because those issues that you're talking about right now are essentially between the two of you for the most part.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then there's two other humans in your house.
Yes.
And so I liked what you said about almost remembering that you're on the same team. You're like in this battle in the trenches together, because there's nothing like kids to almost like rip that apart or make you feel like you're against each other when you're not. And it's not these kids' fault, right? It's just two extra people that two individuals have to care for
Yep.
with different backgrounds and different perspectives, but have to come together. So what does your investment look like, your investment in your marriage? What does that look like now that you have children? What has changed?
Well, I think communication and investment, it takes time and energy, and both of those things go down when you have kids. You know, you have less time, you feel more tired
more
for
drained,
sure,
yeah.
more drained. And so it is one, recognizing that, and then trying to, overcome that, I think, in a lot of ways of trying to still make time for each other and put in that effort, I think, and intentionality there.
So you're sneaking in those conversations when the kids are napping, or like hopefully one can entertain himself in the other room and play.
And I think, to even speak to like, time is lost a little bit more with kids, whatever. So my family lives 4 hours away. And so they used to be, those car rides were very intentional time. And now we have two kids that they might not be napping at the same time in the car. I need a little bit of entertainment, right? But we still take advantage of those car rides, and maybe it's now we have an hour and a half to talk while the kids are sleeping in the car, as opposed to that whole time. But so time is limited, but then taking advantage of that time
that
and being
intentionality.
intentional with it. And then I think one big thing we learned from our good friends, they were pretty, I would say, rigid-ish in their sleep schedule with their kids. And so we watched that and just kind of watched their marriage. And so one of our rhythms, and I would say we're pretty flexible in it, but we do try to have an early bedtime for our kids. And it's so simple and practical, and obviously doesn't work for everyone, but it gives us time at night with each other.
Yeah, it works for us for sure. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I would do if they weren't, if I didn't have 2 hours in the evening with either just myself, with Christina and me, or just to either to reconnect, to each individually rest, to and it's not as though, okay, how do you be intentional in your marriage? It's not like me and her are sitting face to face and have a 2 hour in-depth conversation with each other every time, because it's more holistic than that. We need time to individually rest. We need time, for me, I think like connection is just a lot of time sitting shoulder to shoulder. We can be doing different things, but just in the same room, doing different things next to each other is, I feel connected to her, where that's not the same for her. She wants face-to-face time more. And I'm like, oh, well, we just, last night we individually watched like a movie together. So like, it's not, we're connected, we're great. And she's like, no, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. We call that alone together time, or together alone time in our house. Yeah.
And it works, and it's great for him. It can, on my honeymoon, this is probably not, I just jumped right into learning when we got married. But on our honeymoon, I read a really great book recommended by someone who goes to our church called Love and Respect. And it honestly was life-changing for both of us. And one of the it really talks about, so Ephesians 5, and women are to respect their husbands, husbands love your wives, and basically just what does mutual love and respect look like in a marriage. And like, guys value shoulder-to-shoulder time, and they feel an intimate connection having just done things together without talking. And so I think that can include our kids. So for Friday night for John, he was like, let's go on a hike with the kids. We'll walk, we'll do this, that, and the other thing. And we just did family time together. And I'm sure you can speak to it. Like, he felt very connected after that evening. And then there's time this weekend where we just took time to chat and just catch up, the two of us. And that for me was, okay, I know where John's at. I feel like we're connected right now. And so I think knowing how we best feel connected helps, because we have to be more intentional with that time now that we have kids. And so taking advantage of those smaller moments that we have, and just making sure, we're meeting each other's needs in that way.
Just to throw it back to when you said, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that time at the end of the day. in my experience, our kids are now 6 and 10, and that time goes away a little bit.
Oh,
and I'm with you.
Don't burst my bubble here, Gabe.
Because I loved when they were asleep by 8.
Yeah.
And I could have, like, 10 o'clock is a nice, reasonable bedtime for me. And I'm like, we could sit here for 2 hours and just, even if it's just sit in bed and watch a show or watch a movie. Now, my daughter has decided her bedtime's 10. Yeah. And I want to be sleeping by 10, right? So then when do I have time to connect with my husband? So it is this seasonal, cyclical thing that we're always going to be working on. I feel like you'll find that time elsewhere. Like now we have moments in the morning where we wouldn't have because they're sleeping later because they're up later. So it ebbs and flows, but I think it's just one of those things, like you have to maintain that flexibility. That's how you started this conversation. You have to maintain that flexibility as the seasons change.
Yeah. So your kids are a little bit more grown than us, our kids right now. What does it look like for you and Jonathan right now to, and connect with each other?
Just recently, we have started doing a weekly date night. And if you asked me like 15 years ago, I'd be like, oh, that's so corny. Why do you have to schedule that? And then your kids are 10 and 6 and you have to schedule it. I'm so thankful that we did that. We always have had time specifically set aside, like for us, things always come up, events we have to be at, events we want to go to. But now it's really interesting having this time that like is actually unplanned and it is just the two of us. And it's great. So that is the first thing that I can think of that is how we really spend a lot of quality time together, connecting, checking in, maybe not as formal as, going through the journal, but hey, here's what I'm thinking, or hey, I didn't get to tell you thank you for doing this thing last week, right? So it's that face-to-face time that's really intentional. And then the other thing that we just recently started doing is practicing Sabbath together. And a lot of weeks it's Sabbish. I did not coin that phrase. But a lot of weeks just the weekend just gets carried away. There's so many things on the schedule. But that time to connect with each other and as a family. So sometimes we will turn off the TV, but sometimes it's turning on a movie so that our kids can watch a movie and we can talk. And sometimes it's, all the time it's actually turning off our phones to disconnect from everyone else so that you don't get bombarded with all that information. But instead, you're present together. And so we've been trying to do those two things, a date night and Sabbath, as often as possible. And it's usually at least one of those every week.
Okay. All right. We, one other way that I think we've been learning that it's important for us to invest in our marriage has been through community. And that just, I think, has been ever changing. I think we were single into adulthood, and so we had our own friends, and so we brought some friends into marriage, but now we're slowly starting to have other couples that we're doing life with. We have our community group we do life with, and we lead out in that area, but there's a few couples in particular that we try to get together with on somewhat of a regular rhythm, and we're rubbing shoulders with them and doing life and
learning from each other,
sharing the hard stuff, doing that together. And I guess that is also part of a question I have for you. You and Jonathan have been at this longer than we have. What's it look like to invest in your marriage through community? And then also what's that boundary of preserving alone time together? Because you both, I think, have great community. And so what does it look like to not be, to still preserve time together?
What's interesting is I don't think that we valued those things the same when we first got married. So I'm like definitely an extrovert where I totally become invigorated when I'm around people. And my job is I'm a service provider and I'm around people all day long. And I love having these conversations. And I am an oversharer as well. So I'll tell you anything, whether you asked it or not. And I married somebody who is definitely more introverted and doesn't lean into community naturally, or didn't lean into community naturally. And in the beginning, I had to pull back a little bit from constantly being around people and letting people, all in. Whereas he's had to push himself to progress that and like really dive into these friendships, these, amazing couples that we have in our lives. Like we've now, after 15 years of marriage, almost 15, have these collective relationships that are really so fruitful. Not just like, oh, the girls are friends and like the guys just kind of hang out, or the guys are really good friends and the girls can tolerate each other. We have these like really cool people who we are all in with. And we've been with our current community group for, I'd say like 8 years, maybe 9, since our first children were all really little. And now we're the family with the least amount of kids. We have 2 and everybody else has at least 3 or 4.
Wow.
But it's these journeys together. I think mentorships with people who are older than you are incredibly important. I don't want to discredit that at all. But living life with people who are like-minded, have the same goals as you, and don't necessarily do everything the same.
Yeah.
But I find that those friendships and those connections are incredibly helpful. And not even just helpful, fun. And I love learning. I love growing. But it's really fun to do that alongside other people.
Yeah.
How were you able to maintain? So again, that's how you grow is alongside community. How have you been able to, with kids, preserve time for you and Jonathan together, but also still make sure you're connecting with community while balancing busy schedules?
It feels like a lot of energy. I'm not a planner at all. I love things that are dropped onto my calendar, and I will love to be there. So luckily I married somebody that does like to plan. But we do have those things set aside. So date night is Tuesday nights for us. Our small group, our community group the men meet every Friday morning. The men meet every Friday morning. The women meet every Monday night. And then collectively we meet as families one time a month.
Okay, cool.
And then collectively we meet as only adults one time a month.
Okay, that's awesome.
But that's such a
It's a
cool,
lot.
different, well, yes, but I don't know, different
rhythm.
dynamics,
It's a
different
rhythm, yeah.
rhythms, yeah.
A lot of times like the chicks will feel more comfortable sharing something more intimate with the girls. Everybody brings it back, I'm sure. But it is a way to like really connect. You preserve that connection with the smaller group, and then you're comfortable enough to share things within the larger group too. The kids are all really good friends at this point. Like they operate almost as siblings. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of arguing often, but also there's a lot of really sweet moments. Like the older kids start taking care of the younger kids. But in order to preserve that time, it has to be on the schedule. So those regularly scheduled nights are there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome.
Cool.
Do you guys meet with how often do you meet with your community?
So our community group meets every other week. And I would say slowly people have started to get married within that community. Slowly kids are coming. We were, of our friend group, I would say the first to have kids.
That's a nice weird dynamic, isn't it?
It was nice and weird and hard and fun. Yeah, it was, I feel like we had a lot of people loving our kids well alongside us. And supporting us in that, but then also I think was isolating for
people
sure,
tend
too.
to dip out, and not on purpose. It's just what you're doing on a day to day is so different when you start adding kids. Yeah.
So we meet with our community every other week, and then we have a few couples that we try to. Our goal is every 6 weeks, but probably ends up being about every 2 months. Just meet, have a babysitter. We just spend time together and encouraging each other. Typically play a game. We're a game crowd. But.
So your community group is filled with people in different stages of life, which I love. I love the idea of having different people, the different perspectives coming together. When you do interact with those younger people, or maybe not necessarily younger, but at a different season of life, people who maybe are single or are married without children, how do you, what would you advise a younger couple that's in that situation as they're about to embark on a different season?
Yeah. Do you want to go first? You want me to go?
It's a loaded question.
It is. I mean, it's hard because we walked into marriage highly valuing our community group that was diverse in stages of life and wanted to keep that, obviously. And so then just figuring out how to navigate life altogether still in different seasons has been tricky. But then at the same time, when you're intentional about it and choose to continue to do it and schedule it, you make it work type of thing.
So I feel like we've been able to still do life with those people. And I think, as they're, been stepping into marriage or or into dating, I think our biggest piece of advice, I think, has been valuing communication. I think managing conflict head on, again, giving space where space is needed. But then I think I do always go back to, love and respect. So Ephesians 5, looping back to that, I think that has been huge for our marriage. Just I'm able to take a step back in humility and say, am I building John up in faith? Am I right? My actions, my words, like I probably shouldn't have said that. Was that respecting him? Does he feel valued? And at the end of the day, not just because my husband demands respect, but because I want him to be more Christ-like. And in order to help him in that and support him in that, I need to be Christ-like and love him selflessly. And so I would say like love and respect is my biggest piece of advice for our community, for others kind of, coming up behind us. But I don't know.
And I'm noticing in all of the answers that we've all given, the intentionality is number one, right? Like we all set out to want to love and respect people for the most part, right? Like that, I want what's best for you, you want what's best for me. But in order for that to actually come to fruition, I think we are realizing that you've got to be a little more structured on it, or very much has to stay at top of mind. And I'm a free bird. Like, I don't want to be caged. Yep. As soon as you tell me what I've got to do, I probably want to do it less. Not probably, that is the case. But as I mature and, continue on this journey of life, it's so apparent to me that if you want to get all those things in, you've got to have some structure. You've got to have some thing that's leading in that direction. And it's that intentionality that is going to make those things actually happen.
Yeah. No.
Well, and then also, I mean, just in marriage, I think also we can't not talk about just how important each of our like individual walks are, I guess, too, as Christians and each walk with God. So, I mean, even in our conflict, even in communication, I know that I am a poor communicator. I am not as good of a husband when I am not walking closely with God. And so making sure that I am, seeking him first and choosing to die to my selfish desires so that I can continue to be a good just to continue to serve and to love God. And that then out of that flows being a good husband, being a good father. And I know that when I'm not walking closely with him, I'm also not being a great husband too. And in so many ways. And I can, see that, tie that together. And then also the wonderful thing about marriage though is that we get to keep each other accountable to that too. And run alongside each other, just seeking him. And that's been an amazing thing and something that I've been so thankful for in our marriage, just having Christina and having her to continue to help me to grow in my relationship with Christ and chasing after him.
It is pretty miraculous that two unique individuals can come together and do this thing collectively as one. And it is, again, it's miraculous, and it is outside of just human power and capability, because you cannot stay on that track just solo. Yeah, no way. That's a really good point. Excellent.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I feel like we covered a lot of ground.
We did. It was fun.
Yeah. I'm excited for, more years of marriage and all that we have to learn because,
the hits keep coming. So, and then you just keep rolling through them.
Yeah, I'm really thankful to learn from you and Jonathan and your people too. So thank you.
Y'all are great.